Welcome to Let's Get Writing. I'm Kathryn Taylor, and my guest today is the perfect example of the rich storytelling culture of Newfoundland and Labrador. She says her love of the art of storytelling evolved from familial influences passed down from her father and her maternal grandfather. Isn't that the way it happens here in Newfoundland? We are known for our storytelling. And she's doing an exceptional job of continuing the tradition. So I'd like you to meet this week's author, Ida Linehan Young. And I'm going to bring her up on the screen right now to say hello to us. And let's see you there. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's truly a pleasure. And you're out there in CBS, which would be...
Yes. Conception Bay South.
Conception Bay South. Great names we have on communities here in Newfoundland for anybody watching. If you think that's a good name, boy, we can bring many others to you. Can't
Absolutely.
We,
Absolutely. Good and bad.
Good and bad. Yeah, I think there's been some picked up by some of the talk shows that have been really infamous.
Yes.
Anyway, Ida, you have been busy writing. You finished your book, The Liars, and it's the third book in a series. So I just have to start out by asking you, how does it feel to have accomplished that?
Oh, that's a hard question because I don't know. I just love writing, and I'm still humbled by the fact that people ask me to write more, and people are reading, and from all over the country and really all over the world. I've gotten messages from people from, across the big ocean and across Canada. It's wonderful.
Wow. And when you think about that, you're in Newfoundland and you're writing about books set in Newfoundland and Labrador, it must feel good to be bringing part of our culture to the world. Is that something important to you?
It is very important to me. And I think even if I had a very tiny readership, I would still continue to write about our culture because it is important. I think most of my love of history came from my grandmother and my grandfather. My grandfather often told stories, but it was my grandmother who was very quiet and had no I don't know how to say it, but she was just so there, but still she was so strong and powerful, and people don't realize how much contribution the women had, especially, to our culture. Without the women, we wouldn't be here.
Oh, absolutely, Ida, because when you look back or you read any stories on the history of Newfoundland, it was not an easy life to come here. For example, my grandmother came from Scotland back when it was that was far more civilized than it was to come over here without running water, without sanitation and just the weather and living in isolation and surviving through that. So you're right, and I think you have some strong women figures in your writing, and I'm sure based on this that doesn't happen by accident.
No, and that was my choice because you can pick up hundreds of books from Newfoundland, and most of them are about the men or about politics, or it's about the generations of men, but they all had women by their sides, or maybe helping them in more ways than to become famous or to move along with our history. And I think it was the women were the cornerstones of all of that.
And it took a great deal of strength because they also dealt with a lot of loss of children and loss of family members. It was, it was a difficult life growing up here, but obviously people persevered because we're here.
Absolutely.
And we're excited about the culture and we're excited to share aspects. Now, going to the history, you mentioned your love of history, and it's obvious in your books, and there is some history in there, even though these are works of fiction. Perhaps you can talk about that.
Well, I really wanted to bring the reality of Newfoundland to these books. So I did lots of research. I went to rooms, I went to different places in St. John's, some of the older places, and I did a lot of research and talking to people from archives, like even the archives in the Mercy Convent and places like that, things that we probably would take for granted. And just little tidbits of things that I found as I was researching for books. I marked them down and I went back and incorporated those things into, the second book and the third book.
Interesting. So there's quite a lot of research going along behind the scenes, because we see the book and we hold it in our hands. In fact, I brought it with me. I should have it in my hands right now. But, this is the part we see. And I think the writer's journey is sometimes what readers do like to know about. They do like to know that Ida did dig into things and bring this information forward. I mean, what percentage of your writing would you say that takes up?
Probably 80%. And
Wow.
it takes a long time to write a book. But the research that goes into it, if I want it to be accurate, I mean, I can sit down and chug out a book in a couple of months if I want it, without any kind of, believability or history to it. But I really want to incorporate the history of Newfoundland. And for example, in The Liars, when I was researching one of my earlier books, I came across an article about that happened in Labrador. And so when I came to The Liars, I was like, okay, how can I incorporate something that happened into Labrador with characters that are in John's Pond in St. Mary's Bay? So then I had to do some more research, and I found some items that might help connect it. And so most of The Liars is actually based on true stories that I interwove together to bring The Liars.
Phenomenal. So it's kind of like, well, you could say knitting, as they say in Newfoundland. Who knit you? Who knit that? But
Who
it is
knit ya?
who knit ya? And I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, wow, I love it. but that's what it makes me think of, that you're taking stitches and pieces and you're putting them together into this beautiful end result, and which you can tell in reading the book that there's so much of that there, and the way you move from place to place, or time to, the different time frames and so on. But the image of one of your characters plunging into cold water in Labrador, in winter, was just like, wow. I mean, crazy. So, I mean, you were able to bring that to life. You actually almost live inside those characters.
Absolutely. Like when I am writing a scene with a character, I am that character. And sometimes I'm not entirely sure what is going to happen till I'll get an idea halfway through the scene. And I'm like, okay, maybe I could do that. And then I'll write that scene to that. And then the next scene will have changed because of that. But I try to write on something that I know. I was actually in a car accident one time where I was underwater in the winter. So I remember how cold it was. So I was able to, I guess, kind of capture what happened to me, and in the form of Nancy in the book.
Yeah, and actually, I do think many times we do draw on our sensory experiences in life,
Yes.
and bring that in and try to capture it. And sometimes I find it's even a great idea when something hits you, just to put it. Now I put it in notes on my phone, but one time it would be in a book. Just get it down while it's fresh in your mind. How about yourself? Do you do that type of thing?
Absolutely. Sometimes I even I'll go to bed and I'll think about something, and then I'm like, oh, I should get up and write it down. And I do, because sometimes in the beginning when I didn't do that, I would forget. And so I start, now I just get up, I write it down, then I can go back to sleep. Whereas if I don't write it down, then I'm tossing and turning. So I make sure that I make note of it.
Yeah, and it's a very is very true. You will forget it. You say, no, I won't forget that. And in the
Yeah.
morning you wake up, what the heck
I'll pinch myself. No, you won't forget that. I'll make you feel pain. You won't forget it, but I do.
I think the other method we have is much nicer. Write it
Yes.
down. Write it down when inspiration hits. My
Yes.
goodness. So when you mention you get inside your characters, sometimes that's described as the characters telling you what's going to happen. What do you say to that idea?
I would say absolutely, because I am the type of person, I don't plot out my book. I have an idea and I begin. And as I go, the plot might change, and the ending might even change. But I generally have like an idea formed on what I want to do, and I start writing, and then I'm like, oh, okay, maybe if I did it this way, or something will come to me when I'm in the character mode. And oh, wouldn't that be great if the character, did that or did this? And a lot of people have, when I wrote the first one, Being Mary Rowe, a lot
Mhm.
of people said, oh, like she was our sister, she was our grandmother, she was our great aunt. So we want to hear more. So that kind of led me in, and I really got connected with the characters, and I really love my characters.
Mm. I think that happens a lot to
Yeah.
authors, that they grow to love their characters, even to the point that you hate to kill them off. You,
Yes.
you gotta, they say, do something bad to your character. And then once you figured out what that is, multiply it by 10,
Well,
make it worse.
in the promise, I left the ending hanging, and people, like, I had somebody. I was walking on a trail here in Kelligrews, and somebody stopped me. I hate what you did, and I said, "What did I do? You killed her." I said, "Well, you don't know if she's dead or alive." Yes, you did. You killed her. I was like, "Just wait for the next book and see if she's dead." So people
Well,
really get into it, right? Like I get email messages and messages online. Why did you do that to her? So it's
oh,
good. I love
oh,
it.
oh, I love it too. I love to hear you tell me this, because it's exciting to hear that. And I think in a way, it's been a technique used by writers too. If there are continuous books, you want to know what's going to happen
Yeah.
next. You can't give it all away.
No, that's right.
Not if you're doing a series. You have to have some ups and downs and questions. But that's very cool, because I think that many times we do grow to love our characters. Now, something interesting you said you don't work with an outline, you work with an
No.
idea. And so do you think that obviously it's working for you? You're producing several books. Many people say they have to work with an outline, that it saves them time. But your take on that again is it's not required.
Not for me, but I'm not saying that's not the right way. And I actually did a class I did two classes with a well-known author who showed me how to do the plotting and stuff like that. But like even on this one, I can't seem to do it. I just have to sit down. I can't make myself accountable to a script of what needs to happen. I just have to let the characters tell me what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I don't think you're alone in that. And I'm not sure that there is any right way, to be honest. I think that there are many right ways. Ida, and whatever
No.
works for you and is obviously working. Tell me a little bit about your writing day, because I know you work full time, and so many writers do, but yet you write. So tell me how all this happens.
Well, I guess it's because I love to write, but I honestly don't consider myself an author. Like I write books, but I work and I have grandchildren that are, here a lot. And I have a life, but part of that life is writing, and that's what uh, grounds me, I guess. And especially during this pandemic, I found, worries went away if I sat down and wrote. And that's
Mhm.
what I like about being able to write. I have, thoughts and ideas in my head, and it takes you away from life, takes you away from stress. And I don't stress. I don't have any, like, if I write a book, I write a book. If I don't, nobody knew I was going to write a book. So it doesn't matter, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Only yourself to answer to
Yes.
initially. Although you have a lot of people out there that are
Demanding.
they're going to be a bit more demanding. So maybe now you do have to continue on and get those books written. There might be a
I
little more
don't feel that
pressure.
pressure though. I don't
Well,
make myself feel that pressure.
oh, that's good. So now, if you write, how does it flow for you? Say you write 1,000 words, and that's your output for the day. The next day, do you revisit that, or do you continue on? What's the pattern for you?
I'm a revisitor, which is very time consuming. I remember when I wrote my first book, even when I got to like the, page 180, I had to read 180 pages to see what I did. So it was after that that I started writing scenes, and that makes it a bit easier. Like I know what to see. And so my next book now, I have the final scene done. Now it might change, but I don't have to, like, I only have maybe 25,000 30,000 words written, but the final scene is done. So I
So,
know what, like, it's like, I know what's going to happen down the road, but I
mhm.
just got to, write some scenes to get me there. So it's much easier now doing scenes. However, before I would, I mean, I'm not a educated in the art of writing. It's just something that I do.
Yeah, but it's interesting. You've got an end point, so you know where you're going. It's just like you can't go to the airport and just say you want a ticket. The first question is, well, where would you like to go, ma'am? So I think you've really hit on something by having the end scene, even though you may not have everything done out. You know where you're going, and
And I actually did that for my last two books. I had the ending written and then I wrote to the ending. It's like I can see the finish line and I
Mhm.
have something to get, like I have a place to get to. So that helps me.
Absolutely. And even in writing a book, when you say there's so many pages and you have to go back and read, remembering details,
Hmm.
continuity is a big thing. Like, were the eyes brown? Were the eyes blue? Was he this tall or that? So do you do have character sketches, or is all that stored in your
No,
magical head?
fly by the seat of my pants. So in my first book, the one being Mary Rowe, I had, you know, there was a scene that I needed to have, but I couldn't make it fit because Mary's mother was a teacher. So I went to the WANL, the Writers
Mhm.
Association of Newfoundland, and I had some feedback. And the person that gave me feedback, he said, "You are God in that story." And that really struck me. I'm like, I'm God. Why did she have to be a teacher? Like the mother could have been a nurse. So I changed that, but that meant I changed several scenes, but just like references to it. But it really struck me that I'm God in the book. So
Mm.
I can do whatever I want with the characters, and that really was like, woohoo! I know what I am.
It's
So it's
exciting.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an exciting thought. You are in control. You can do
Hmm.
all kinds of mean things or nice things and
Yes.
bring other people in, make complications. So it's really fun. And I think that dynamic you've hit on is something that writers love. They love
Yes.
that kind of thing. And it's exciting to make up these stories. You mentioned WANO. For anybody who might not know, that's the Writers Alliance of Newfoundland and Labrador, and it's an organization here to support writers, and certainly for writers to be a member. There's
Hmm.
incredible information and support there. And so I don't know if you have any comments you might want to make about WANO while we're on the topic.
Well, like I said, I'm a member. I get their newsletter all the time. They have a web page, and actually, somebody reached out to me because my name was on their website, and somebody reached out to me for help with something that they were doing. Had nothing to do with like writing or being an author, but they needed help with something, and they reached out to me because of that website. So, like, it's very good. I took advantage of the mentorship program. So like my first book I wrote, I had a mentor and he looked at the book and he said, well, you're a little bit too nice. You need to be a little bit meaner and things like that. And I'm like, yes. And then he said, you're God. And I was like, okay, look out, characters. Here I come. So Wendell it's very good. No matter if you are beginning, if you are a seasoned author and you can help somebody else, it's just a wonderful association.
Absolutely. And it's good just to remind people that it's out there. Membership is very reasonable, and take
Oh,
advantage.
absolutely.
Go online and check it out. We've told you about it now. Now, also, when it came to, it's one thing to write a book, it's another thing to publish it and get it out there. Can you tell me a little bit about how that unfolded for you?
Well, my first book, I was with a publisher that is no longer exists. So when I came into the historical fiction series, I was, I was publisherless. So I went to Flanker Press and I gave them my manuscript for Being Mary Rowe, and they were very eager to publish, and I've been there ever since. Like they're great, they're great support, and I just find it's lovely to have a publisher because then there's things you don't need to worry about. They
Certainly.
do, cover art and editing and all that sort of stuff. You just gotta, get it to them and let them polish it up and send it on its way.
And there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. Many people self-publish and deal with those things themselves, but it's nice to have someone holding your hand if that works out or
Absolutely.
that's the direction you want to go in. How did you feel about your cover when you saw it? Let's say The Liars. How was because I really like I love that cover. How did you feel about
Well,
it?
I really really loved it. So when I did the story, I kind for this was the only one I had input into the cover. So I said, like, to me, I would like the characters to be, like this. I don't care who they are, but this is what I envisioned for the cover. And when I got it back, it was awesome. So I just, I'm floored by the three covers. They've been amazing.
Mhm. And in your opinion, how important do you feel a cover is to a book? Big question.
Oh, it's absolutely integral. I mean, that's the first thing. If nobody knows your name or anything about you, and they look at the cover, it's what's going to draw them to even just open it up and look inside. So
Mhm.
it's integral. It's something we really should pay attention to. It's not a secondary thing; it's a primary thing.
Mhm. And I think today, in the way the world is, people are so quick to look at images and, push the screen next, 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 that cover does have to jump out. And when you are with an experienced publisher, I expect that they get a pretty good sense of what's working and what's not.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, how about
And I just you have to learn to let go. So there's things you have to let the experts tell you. So I just gave them the idea, and they came back with this. It wasn't exactly the idea, but it was better. So, like, I really, really liked it.
Excellent. And your point about you have to learn to let go is very true as well. In so many ways, in writing a book, at some point it has to go. It has to go in the hands of another editor who may change things or suggest things. So it's that feeling sometimes that writers have of the personal connection and the ownership, but just having to let the baby go a bit. Was that hard for you?
Absolutely. No, actually, it's not. Like, you get it to the edge of the nest, and then here you go, get out. And whatever happens, happens, and it's worked. So I'm lucky that there hasn't been very many, like, actually, I don't think there's been any changes other than a couple of cursory, well, there's too many she's at the beginning of those
Mhm.
lines or things like that. So,
Well, which
uh,
speaks
sorry,
for the
go ahead.
work. It speaks for the work that you put into the writing and the editing process yourself.
Yeah, I am very technically, um, I don't know, I'm very like minute. So I try to have it as good as I can before I send it in.
Right. And now, how about for publishing, not publishing, but promoting it? How involved are you with your book promotion?
Very, very involved. I have an Instagram account for my author. I have an author page. I have a website. All that comes at a cost, of course, and it comes with time. I have a Twitter account and things like that. So, um, from social media perspective, I'm very active.
Mhm.
I have done like two signings a week at places in St. John's. I've gone across the island. I've read in libraries. Anywhere I'm asked to go, I've done online Zoom meetings with, um, you know, writing groups and things like that. So if I'm invited and I can do it, I will do it. And if
Yeah.
I can, get out and sign and meet the people, I love it.
That is nice, because writing is done in such isolation, and when you can actually get out and have that interaction with readers and audiences, I think is a very nice thing for a writer.
Well, I mean, if you don't have readers, then where you're going to dry, your writing talent is going to be dried up and gone. You have to have your readers, and you have to respect what the readers want, and you have to respect that they're there and they want to meet you.
And it all takes time in between the writing,
Absolutely.
and managing social media takes time. And I think you do a lot of readings as well online. In fact, you've got one coming up tonight.
Yes, yeah.
And you have people who follow you through that. So it's a wonderful combination of many things that you're doing to make this all come together. Did you ever imagine that you would be doing this?
Not at all. And even like I think I was the first book. I don't know if I was like the first, maybe not across the world, but the first book that I know of that was released during the pandemic. So I had my book launch during the pandemic. Myself and my daughter were here in the kitchen, and we treated it as if there was hundreds of people there, and hundreds of people came. So online, virtually, but it has really impacted book sales and things like that. But like the pandemic is the pandemic. Your book is not the most important thing in the world. So
No, and
we just have to realize that.
we move on and we find ways, and this being one of them. This show is one way I can get writers' messages out. And Ida, it's been a delight to talk to you. It's really been wonderful, and to share insights with you. And we're just ready to wrap up now. And very quickly, is there anything on the horizon for you coming soon that we should
Uh,
know about?
I got 3 projects on the go. I have a 4th in the series. I think it's called now a quadrilogy. I'm not sure what but my first 2 characters, Mary and Peter, never really had an adventure. So I'm halfway. Well, I'm 30,000 words into that. I also have my mom's story that I'm working on, and I just have another piece of fiction that I did during when I was doing my 2 courses. I started something and I enjoyed it, so I'm going to continue with that. So, looking forward to 3 more books.
Wonderful. Well, Ida, keep on writing, and I hope you'll be back to talk with me again and share more stories. Thank you so much. Have
Thank
a
you for
wonderful
having me.
day. My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Bye now.
Bye.